Mitch. I am a program manager with Western SARE. That's hosted here out of Montana State University. I'll start the presentation, and then Fabian Benalied, who's the regional coordinator for Western SARE, will take up halfway through. So how many farmers and ranchers do we have in here?
The what?
Okay, so we're gonna give a little bit, since it's about a 50-50 crowd in here, we're gonna give a kind of a general overview of our grants of our organization, and then give more specific tips at the end of the presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off, just ask you guys, who has heard of Western SARE, which is Sustainable Ag Research and Education? Woo, good, so I'd say 60% of the room. Has anyone successfully secured Western SARE funding? Great, so this is a very applicable workshop for you this morning. So even though about 40% of you didn't know what Western SARE is, we'll give a brief presentation on what we are. So SARE is Sustainable Ag Research and Education. We're NIFA, National Institute for Food and Agriculture, which is an agency in the USDA, funded projects to support research and education on sustainable agriculture. So we get the money from our national agency, and then the country is split into 4 regions. The western region is here in blue, so it's all 11 contiguous western United States, Hawaii, Alaska, and then we also cover American territories and protectorates in the Pacific, so Guam, Micronesia, Northern Mariana Islands, and America Samoa. I always forget America Samoa. So depending on where you're located in the country, I'm assuming most of you are from Montana, your grants will be, if the research is conducted in the Western U.S., or if you're a graduate student or a farmer in the Western U.S., you would apply to the Western SARE. Our mission is to advance incremental and transformative changes, innovations that improve ag profitability, environmental stewardship, and quality of life by investing in groundbreaking research and education on sustainable agriculture. So we foster incremental and transformative changes in sustainable ag by investing. So we have the money, and we give out money to people who have the knowledge and the expertise to conduct this research and education. So an example of an incremental change would be things like tillage, integrated pest management, cover crops, food safety, animal health, and nutrition. A transformative change, which depending on which sessions you've been in, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and the scale of your research. A transformative change would be something more at a systems level, food systems based level research that improves society and environmental resilience. So what is sustainable ag? So since we are a USDA funded program, we use a legislative definition of sustainable ag. So it's for Western SARE grants, our definition of sustainable ag is an integrated system of plant and animal production practices that over the long term will satisfy human food and fiber needs, enhance environmental quality and the natural resource base upon which the agricultural economy depends, make the most efficient use of non-renewable resources, and where appropriate, integrate natural biological cycles and controls. It'll sustain the economic viability of farm operations and enhance the quality of life for farmers and society as a whole. So SARE, and in particular Western SARE, is unique among USDA NIFA grant funding, and this is mostly because farmers and ranchers are an integral part of all of our grant programs. So whether you're submitting a farmer and rancher grant, or all the way up through our research and education grants, which are typically submitted by faculty, though farmers and ranchers are a part of all of our research programs. So who qualifies as a farmer or rancher? So again, since we are a USDA funded program, we have a standard national definition for what a farmer is. So a farmer is a person who has a for-profit operation and their primary occupation is farming and ranching, or they're a part-time producer with at least $1,000 of documented income annually from farming and ranching activities. So our 4 different grant programs, a farmer and rancher grant program, there's 1 farmer and rancher involved. Our other grant programs, depending on the call for proposals, the grant that you're looking at, it depends on how many farmers and ranchers need to be involved. So this gives a definition of what separate farm operations are considered. Another thing that makes Western SARE unique for a USDA grant program is we are governed by an administrative council. They make our decisions, so it's a lot like a board. And this board, or our administrative council, is made up of farmers and ranchers in the Western region, agribusiness people, extension. We have federal government agency representation such as NRCS, AERO, things like that. And we also have researchers and academics. And these people come from all over the Western US. So again, another thing that makes us unique is we cover this huge area, geographic area. So you can imagine the agricultural practices that we run into on Guam are quite a bit different than the things that we see here in the Northern Great Plains in Montana. So we cover a huge diversity of systems, agricultural products, and practices. Are there any questions about SARE or what Western SARE is? The question was was a question about involving more than 1 producer. And so the farmer and rancher, and Fabian will go over this a little bit more, if you're 1 producer, you can get a certain amount of money, but if you collaborate with 3 different producers, you can get a little bit more money. And so that was just a definition about like what is considered separate farming operations.
So 2 people in the same farm
aren't considered 2
friends.
farmers, yeah.
So it should be independent operations. Non-profits do not count
as farming operations.
Okay, cool. So, we'll be stopping for questions, but if you have any question for me or for Alison, just stop in your ask her any minute. Okay, no need for me to say any questions. So basically what we do is we are the middleman, put it this way, in the sense that we receive the money from USDA and then we give it away. And we give it, all of our programs are through competitive approaches. There's a few designated programs that we have. And we want to do both research and education. They're integral components of our programs, and it should be that in cooperations between producers, agricultural producers, ag educations, and researchers. So if someone from MSU says, I want to do this because I think this is great, etc., it doesn't even go through the front door. Because it should be, I've been working with these producers, this is the letter of cooperation, they've been integral component of, they brought the questions, and we are going to be doing this together, the research and the education. And we have, like I said, 7 competitive grant programs. I think here it's only 6. But anyways, we have a kind of a broad portfolio of grants, and it's very important for you to know the difference between the grants, because many times when we receive a grant application, they are reviewed by a panel, an external set of reviewers, and I will explain that in a minute. And the problem is that many times they go like, yeah, this is a great idea, but doesn't fit to this program. It should go to the next program. And the problem is that we can't do that for you, because you submit it here and we are not allowed to move it there. We can basically say, this is great, come back next year, you may consider to go here. But it's a shame that you kind of lose the opportunity. And I forgot this handout there, okay, that will basically give a brief description of our program and the different panels that we run. So basically, we have a little more than 30 years of history. It was started in California, then early on moved to Utah, and it stayed in Utah for like 27 years or so, and last year it moved from Utah to Montana State. And since 1998, the program have gave or supported research and education on sustainable agriculture for more than $60 million. I think when we finish this year, we'll be probably in the $70+ million that we have sponsored. In Montana itself, we have sponsored more than 110 programs of research and education, and we gave in competitive grants more than $7 million. Okay? So for example, last year we awarded a total of 8 grants, and it was a total of over $500,000 that was awarded to farmers and ranchers and researchers in Montana. And you can see here the break in the different programs. Definitely grad students were doing pretty good. So now we have the call for proposals open right now. So the deadline is going to be around November 12th, depending on which program you have. So the money is there, and we allocated this year around $6.4 million to be awarded in competitive grants. You can see that they have different amounts, but I will be sort of concentrating today in the 4 ones that I think you may be more interested in applying. And the reason of that, first, research application is closed. You need to submit a pre-proposal, and it's mostly geared towards researchers at universities. They get $350,000, engage farmers, ranchers, etc. So if you have a good idea, contact your faculty at the university, start working together, because the call for pre-proposal is going to be opening soon. Then we have the grad students, who just finished, and these 4 are open right now. And we allocated in those 4 programs, I'm bowling close to $2 million plus or minus. So now, if you look at the success rate of the different programs, you can see first, this is a little bit tricky. Research and education, it rates that it's a 24% of success rate, but because this is just for the pre-proposals which were advanced to proposals. If you consider the pre-proposals, it was less than 10%. It's a very competitive program. Then the 4 that I will be talking today, professional producer, farmer rancher, professional development and research to grassroots, they have anywhere between 40 to 80% success rate. So around 50% is a logical number. Now, these 80% perhaps is because it was the first year we ran the program. So people didn't really know. So we expect this year to be receiving way more grants, and that percentage will decrease. We've been beating the drums quite a lot, so we hopefully will be receiving more grants. So, I can't tell you what is the success rate this coming year, but that's sort of historically it's been at that level. So professional plus producer. Again, we allocated around $430,000 for this year. And it's basically when we have an ag professional, and the definition of an ag professional is pretty broad. Could be an extension agent, could be someone from a nonprofit, could be someone within AERO, who basically will act as an advisor of a group of farmers, okay? And they need to have at least five producers. That was she was saying. So when that person gets together 5 producers, they can apply up to $50,000, okay? And the deadline is going to be November 13, noon, okay? Noon in Montana time. If you do it 12:01, she would say no, okay? And the reason we'll say that is because we want to be a fair competition. We don't want people to say, oh, I have 5 extra hours, and it's like, so noon is the deadline, okay? And what we want is to have 5 people working together in an idea. And each one of them could be doing their own little, variation, but they should be on a common theme. Okay, some that will be addressing, and very important, sustainable agriculture have 3 legs, right? The environmental, biological, the economic, and the social. So you could be sort of centering in one dimension, but you need to address the other 2. Like, I will be putting these cover crops for enhancing soil health, but it will probably also have some benefits in terms of economics. I will check the cost, etc. So this is an example of one proposal that was approved last year, which exactly was on growing and marketing Asian grains in Wyoming. Okay, and it was by an extension specialist or basically, I think she was an extension educator and a county extension agent, and basically she wanted to test what are the costs and benefits associated with growing Asian grains. So she had 5 farms and 3 research centers, and they were going to be growing those grains, checking yields, checking profitability, and they were doing some, in terms of that would be their research, but there's also an education component. And the education was pretty, I think, savvy, because they wanted to do some workshops on baking and cooking. So they wanted to train people on using those ancient grains. Okay, they were going to be developing some extension bulletins and some cooking videos, and they will be working with malters, brewers, and commercial bakers. So that will be, they will be addressing that system approach that we're talking, not just production all the way to commercialization. If you have one farmer or rancher and has one advisor, and that person has a crazy idea, something we go like, wow, this is a good idea for research and education, but it's risky, and you don't want to take that risk. We will cover, put that way, that risk. We will provide you the capital for you to do the research on that component. Now, it will be $20,000 for one farmer or rancher, or 25 this two competing. Okay, sorry, 3 or more competing. Sorry, and this is where we really want those creative ideas. We'll cover the risk. You do the research and the education. Now, sort of important here, we cannot pay for buying land. We cannot pay for major capital equipment. So we allow up to $5,000 for capital equipment, but it should be an autonomous unit. So we have this question a few days ago where someone said, well, I want a rototiller, I can't remember what it was, but it was a rototiller will cost $4,000, and then I see some piece of equipment that will be attached to the rototiller, which was $2,000, and whatever piece is like, no, you can't. It was basically to build a unit that was $8,000. So it should be something that it will work by itself, and we can cover up to $5,000. Okay? And again, you need to do research and education. Get some creative ideas. You can do a little video, a podcast, invite your neighbors, and have a field day, and record everything, because we will be asking you for a report later. And this is an example of something that we sponsored this year, and it came from the northern Mariana Island, and it was basically an approach to improve the student education with the specific emphasis on the production of dragon fruits. So they were doing some experiments on different techniques of production of dragon fruits, such as changing the lighting and the watering system, but they were addressing, like I said, that would be sort of the production component. They were addressing the social component, because they wanted to train the students and have that profits going back to the students, so they can then invest in their own education. Okay.
I have
Sure.
a question about that last one. What was a particular risk or something? What was the creative aspect of this? Like, why was this considered risky?
Because what was considered risky? We went to I didn't go to the northern Mariana Island, but I went to Micronesia, and this year, this year we did an effort to reach those communities there, and those communities are true food desert. You can buy any vegetables. There's nothing there. Forget about milk. There's not even a concept, you know. So just the only idea of growing a vegetable in a place where, yeah, it looks like it is a paradise.
Very green. Yeah.
But you stay more than 24 hours and go like, there's no food. So creating that knowledge and that opportunity.
So there was a huge gap, and this was kind of producing the dragon fruit was
right.
filling that gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really good question, because yeah, that's a pretty simple design, but it is in the context, and that goes. And I'm going to go forward how we make the final decision. I'll talk that in a minute. So, any other question? Sure.
So you said the focus is not to help with equipment expenses, right? So what if a single piece of equipment would allow, like what if the idea was we can produce this vegetable throughout Montana winters, but we need this one piece of equipment that costs $5,000? Is that?
Well, but then it should be tagged with a research question. Okay. So you need to ask it like, are you sure you can do it? Because, you know, we want to test if we can build the vegetables through the winter with this piece of equipment. And we want to see how much we can improve our productivity and how we're going to be distributing and how many years it will pay by itself. So put it in the context of a research, and also put it in the context of education. Because education, outreach, because we give you the money, not for you, it's for your community. So you're responsible for them, you know, producing some education material that people will say, oh, if I invest $5,000, I can, you know, get these benefits, etc.
So the grant is for $20,000 for individual farmers, and what if your sole focus for this grant is that piece of equipment that costs $5,000? Could you just ask for $5,000? Would that increase your chances of?
So that's a great question. I don't know. To be honest with you,
it's like it almost seems like it would then be like, well, now I need to justify the other 15,000.
No, I mean,
and that might be hard to do.
We go for the good ideas.
Okay.
Okay, so literally when, you know, at least when I run the panels, and she runs this panel, the farmer runs it, but I run the research and education and also the grad students. At least I ask my reviewers, it's like, you know, if there's one grant that we need to go and steal the bank to get the money, tell me, we will put it, you know, the very, very top. But we look at the quality. Then we look, and budget has a ranking, has 10%? 5%. So over 100 points you can get, you will only get, you can look at 5 points. But if you say, look, this guy is asking for, this is a great idea, this is a fantastic idea, and it will cost only $5,000, that's really good. But if it's that's a good idea, and you're asking for $5,000, it will not move on. So first thing is a good idea, and then we'll look at the budget. Make sense?
Yep, makes perfect sense.
So don't sell yourself cheap, because we expect producers to be paying for their own time. Because if you're going to be doing education, if you're going to be putting some research in the project, you will probably need to get paid. And, you know, so again, you will be running a field day. So you will need a little bit of perhaps food to help to bring people in, etc. You need to produce a couple of handouts. So let me put it this way, bad proposal, don't get moved even if it's cheap. Good question. Any other question? Project that started last year, that research to grassroots, and again, we have like 80% chances of success last year. hopefully this year will go down, meaning we get more people applying, because we give up to $75,000, and the reasoning behind this project is that, you know, we sponsor a lot of money in research, but we don't see that application in the grassroots. So we want to bring that research to grassroots. Okay, that's the name. It took me a while to figure out why that name. So we want to bring back the research. That was sponsored by SARE. So what you need to do, it's a little trick here, you need to go to the Western SARE website or the National SARE website and search for, you have an idea, such as producing, you know, food, fiber, bioenergy with these techniques, okay, cover croppings, whatever is your idea. So check what research was done and sponsored by us in the past, not just Western, but the whole national, and say, okay, these 3 projects has, you know, done this, and it shows that cover crop cocktails work, but it was done in a semi-dry area in Montana. I live in Northeast where we have a little more rainfall. Then I want to check also some demonstration trials on farm and do some education to see how this idea could be applied. Okay, so it's kind of a really very applied research with a lot of education, a lot of emphasis on the education. Again, deadline is coming, November 20 at noon, and this is an example. And they were working on on-farm demonstrations of cover crops. Okay, so they were going to be checking cover crops and sharing the data with a relatively, I think it's 1 or 2 years old group, which is the Western Cover Crop Council. Okay, so they basically go saying that there were a lot of research sponsored by SARE that shows the importance of cover crops, but they wanted to see what are the best ways to make sure that people adopt those cover crops. Okay, so they were going to be having on-farm demonstrations across Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and they were going to be checking different mixtures and fertility rates and planting dates. Okay, and then they were going to be developing simple and systematic cover crop evaluation criteria, and they were going to be coordinating those criteria with the Western Cover Crop Council and in regional conferences and field days. Okay, and they were going to be partnering with NRCS to disseminate the learning or the knowledge that they gain, and also they were going to be working on this Pacific Northwest cover crop selection tool, okay, which was going to be a Microsoft tool. So again, this is more for an education type of proposal, and I think you have a question.
Yeah, so do you guys have a database with all of your research?
Yes.
Where I can go and type a word in and then...
So the question was,
Profit, yeah.
if you have a database, yes, we have both the regional one and the national one. So if you go to Western SARE, our website, there will be a search tool of previously funded programs, and you can also go from there to the national one. Okay, and there's keywords such as state, name of the PI, keywords of the practice such as cover crops, etc. So, question is, if I understood correctly, who can apply for this type of project? I guess there's no limit there. So as long as you are focused on education, so and demonstration trials. So I'm a researcher. I may just want to coordinate this really ambitious project. I may want to coordinate this, or it may be, in this case, he's I think he's an extension specialist, so someone working on extension. Could be a non-profit, could be a farmer really geared into, you know, demonstration and education. So basically we don't, except for the research and education proposals, where we want to have a team of a researcher and an extension person, and then 3 farmer ranchers. But we want the PI be the person who does the research, maybe the extension. And most of the cases are people from universities, faculties, etc., because that's geared toward heavy research. The rest is, there's no limit. There's anyone who can show proficiency and interest, and like they told him, with a really cool idea. That's what really brings. Cool. And then professional development. Again, we allocated a little bit more than $850,000. Deadline is going to be November 13, and it's basically train the trainers. Okay, so the main idea will be to run any activity that you can think, such as a workshop or demonstration trials, where you will be disseminating that knowledge. There shouldn't be much on-farm experimental trials. Okay, it could be then run at the state level or regional level, and the maximum allowed per grant is $75,000. So this is an example of something that was sponsored last year. It came by Carolina Martinez from the California Association of Micro Enterprise Opportunity. And it was basically called the Business of Farming Train the Trainer program. And the idea was that we have an economy that it is doing good, but at the same time, farmers are struggling, or they are, particularly small operations, they're closing. So what's going on there? Why in this booming economy we cannot have farmers that are also flourishing? So they were going to be developing a business course focused on farming. It was going to be a remote training approach, and they were going to be focusing on small business development and business management for agricultural production. And they expected, and this is very important, that you kind of show the much impact you will have, because if you're going to give you money, we really want to see what's going to be the impact here. And they were saying that they expect to reach up to around 315 owners and farmers. So next, let's start going about some tips on how to write a successful Western SARE grant. And perhaps we can share here, because she will give also her tips. But before that, questions?
Could you remind me, what was the due date, the deadline for the Farmer Rancher grant?
The 12.
12.
And then
yeah.
those are annual?
We, every March or August, usually in August, we decide when the deadline is going to be, but we try to do it
It's
around...
roughly once a year though?
Yeah.
It is once a year.
Yeah.
Okay, and then...
That is usually in late fall, maybe early spring, because we make, for these proposals, we run the technical review panels sometimes in January, and then we, the Administrative Council make decisions sometimes in March. So.
And then does applying, whether you get accepted or not, does that have any influence on your likelihood the following year?
So the question is, if I understood correctly, if you did not get the grant, is that right?
So just trying to leverage or weigh your options of whether or not to apply this year, if you think that would if that would disqualify you next year.
No, it will not. If you send, will it disqualify? If you send it this year, next year, you can't send double dip the same idea twice.
Okay.
But if you have a great idea this year, and then you have another great idea next year, it's fantastic. If you have an idea this year that wasn't funded, but we give you feedback, and then you come back next year and say, hey, last year they made this recommendation. The only thing I can tell you is that you may have better chances. You may, because it's going to be reviewed by a new panel and compete with a new set of proposals. So people get upset when they say, oh, I did everything you told me, you didn't get better money. It's like, because it's a new submission.
Yep.
So when you apply, can the proposal be for a longer period of time? So say, like, I'm gonna need 2 years to implement that, or like
Yes.
3 years, and then can you apply for continuation as well? So if it's like, this is the next step in this project, I'm applying for additional funding.
Yes, you can, because the proposals go up to 3 years. So you have 3 years. And then we can give you, it's a decision on us, give a 4th year's non-cost extension. So if you have not used all the money, and you say, and you send a good reason why you need to, continue to use the money, then we may say, okay, we give you an extension. But you cannot plan it for a 4-year program. So it's like, well, I still need to do a field day. So I have this leftover money. Apply for an extension. We have a long-term program, but that's geared towards research and education. However, there's nothing that will tell you that you say, and one important thing is that the continuation of the program for the 2nd, 3rd year and the eventual 4th year non-cost extension depends on your report. If you show us in your report that you are doing everything we ask you to do and everything looks fine, then yes, you get the 4th year's extension, and then you can say, I get all these different results and they look great, and you apply again. Another question that some people ask, how many proposals can I submit 1 year? And you can submit as many proposals as you want, but we only be awarding 1 proposal per year. Okay. So, and then sometimes we'll get 2 proposals. That's very uncommon, and we call them and say, hey, you have these 2 proposals, which one you choose? But it's not that common.
So if there was a situation where you had one farmer submitting a proposal for one idea, and then another collaborative effort between 3 groups submitted a group proposal, that one farmer could only be involved, would only be awarded one of those?
They cannot be the PI, means the principal investigator. So in the professional producer is the advisor who sends the proposal. So you can collaborate.
You could be a collaborator on the 2nd grant, but not the PI.
You cannot be the leader
Gotcha.
in both proposals. Cool. Any other questions for me or for? First, wisely choose the program you want to apply. Because again, if you submit something for research to grassroots, but it's really research and it's a farmer rancher or a professional class, we'll go like, and the sad thing is the panels are running at the same time. It may be in the same room, but we say, but we can't even move it. So the other one is, if you really want to know about that program, we have webinars for each one of the different programs. Okay, so just go to YouTube, Western SARE, and we have a channel there, the YouTube channel for Western SARE. And you will have, for example, this one, writing a successful farmer rancher proposal. Okay, and another option is go to our website, and in our website go to the grant applications, and somewhere there you will go into the watch the webinar. So webinar to write a successful proposal. Each one of them runs for 1 hour, and it's very technical in terms of how to write your budget. What items are allowed and what items are not allowed. How to enter, that's her specialty, how to enter into the platform, because all the application is done into a platform. So how to navigate that platform. Okay. Carefully read the call for proposal and follow the instructions. Okay. And the reason for that is that First, you can go for the available grants there, and you will click for the call for proposals, and we spend a lot of hours writing the call for proposal. There's a lot of text here. Looks very boring. It is really boring, but it will ask you questions such as, for example, relevance to sustainable agriculture. Okay, and then I would say, explain why this project will improve the sustainability of the agricultural production. A lot of wordings. But then the reviewers will be asked the same question. Okay, we see, is this project innovative? And they have to say yes or no and justify it. Okay, and the reviewers will say like, yeah, it was innovative and it's because of this and that. It has support for farmers. What are the ideas that they are tackling? Are all the required materials included? Okay, and this is really, really important, because starting this year, if you send a proposal that doesn't have all the information required, for example, your CV, we will not be able to even look at it, because that was the decision that the Administrative Council made, because we have so many problems in the past. So that only full applications will be reviewed. If you want to know what happens behind bars, how a proposal is discussed, there's a really nice video that was put a mock panel by the National Science Foundation. You can just Google NSF review panel video, and it's a review panel because you will have, how many minutes in your panel? 12 minutes?
12.
Okay, so your proposal will be discussed only for 12 minutes. You spend a month working in it. And then you will have a primary reviewer, a secondary, tertiary. And there's all these dynamics of the primary explains, secondary makes comments, tertiary adds some things, and they start the discussion. And you can see in here how in 12 minutes a proposal goes to the top, to the bottom, to the middle. And you really learn how to make your message so that the primary, secondary, tertiary will bring your proposal forward and will be your champion of your proposal. But they're objectively explaining what's going on. Again, incomplete proposals will not be reviewed. Make sure you have everything. There's a lot of resources for the. In Montana, we have a state coordinator. She's Shell Mills. She's in which county?
I feel like she's in Conrad.
Northeast. Can't remember. It's our website. If you have any question related to the professional development, you need to contact Jim Freeburn. He's in Wyoming. That will be professional development of research to grassroots. If you have any question related to the Farmer Rancher Professional Plus, just contact us here at MSU. Okay? Here's our website, and check our videos on how to write a proposal. With that, questions for me? Do you want to join me?
I guess my question is, like, do you have any tips for the kind of language in writing a proposal? Like how specific do you have to be with how the project is going to be carried out? Can you be vague at all, or
People, where we do see a lot of points taken or a proposal going from like, oh, they really wrote a great narrative explaining why this is important for sustainable ag, their team looks really good, and then you get to the materials and methods section and people are like, they referred to this field over here and then they referred to that field. So people do really look at the materials and methods, so that I would say that's a really, and in most of the grant proposals, I think it carries the largest percentage in the call for proposals. I think for Farmer Rancher, it's 25%. So the research materials and methods are really important.
And in the videos, the webinars, we give a lot of tips on, for example, materials and methods. Make sure that you write the A, B, C, D. Those tips are in the call for proposal, but we sort of highlight them.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing to do will be go to the videos, watch the videos, and then read previous proposals, because all the everything that you get once we give you the money, it's federally funded projects, so it's common information. It will be posted on our website. We will probably go to your farm and visit it and make an interview and make a news release. So you can't say, oh, you can't tell what I just found about this research. It's public information, okay? So there's a lot of information of previous grants, results, and you can see the proposals as well.
Good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there anybody that would review it before you submitted it? Is anybody in the staff available for that?
No, yeah, we can't do that. You can ask, a good resource to bounce ideas off of would be your state coordinator, but they also shouldn't be looking at they can look at it, your collaborators, if you're working with people, and your technical advisor, if you're working on a farmer rancher grant, would be a really good person to look at the proposal, but anyone associated with SARE will not look at it prior.
But you can ask your neighbors, your colleagues, or someone, at your extension office. They can, but anyone associated with Western SARE, we can provide input on your grants, because we will be evaluated.
I would say that is an important tip, is to look at it, because even on like the bigger research and education grants where it's faculty that have written 10 grants, they had weird spelling mistakes or some things were, because when you're down and looking at something so many times, it's hard to see.
Who are the people that review these grants?
It's kind of like our administrative council. We will recruit all over the Western U.S. and from all different expertise. People that are on our administrative council do also participate in the review panels. So people on our administrative council, that's actually on our website, so you can look at that. But we also, for research and education, it's a little bit easier because we know the topics, but for farmer, rancher, and professional plus producer, we just try to cover the range of topics and areas of expertise. So we'll get, a rural sociologist from UC Davis, or a crop agronomist from Montana or Idaho. We try and cover them.
And farmers and ranchers.
Yeah, farmers and ranchers.
We are, by the handbook, we are supposed to have at least 2 farmers or ranchers in each panel. Mm-hmm. So farmers and ranchers we bring farmers and ranchers into the panel, and they are primary, secondary, and tertiary reviewers as research at the UC Davis. Okay, so they will be, at the table, everyone has the same voting rights. Any other questions? Well, you can, if you have any question, we are here in Linfield Hall. You can stop by or send an email. We won't be able to read your proposals, but we can, if you have very sort of specific questions, such as, hey, am I cutting cheap by not asking for money for, because that really something can actually hurt you. It's like, yeah, he's only asking for $5,000 for equipment, but how is he going to be doing the research? Who's going to be paying for the gas for that equipment?
So it's not wrong to then say, like, I need to be compensated for the amount of time
No,
that I
it
need to put into.
No,
it is written in the proposal that we expect
Good, cool.
you to be compensated.
So you would then set maybe your hourly rate or something, and say, here's what I'd be asking for to spend this time doing this research and putting on these community events.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sweet.
And it would cost me this much money to buy flags to flag my field, so I can, set up whatever you want to.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.